It's not completely gone. It's just being put to a box. So what are you going to do?
Okay, open the box, damn it. Just open the box. Hey, YouTube. So, a couple years back, I ran into just a little bit of an issue. And that issue was that I had largely forgotten how to be a magician. Which honestly was a lot easier to do than you might imagine, especially on social media, where the attention span is so very, very short. For the better part of a decade, I've been doing hardcore sleight of hand with playing cards on Instagram, almost non-stop. And it's been great. I got followers, I got to travel, I got to meet people I never would have met. But there were two very unintended consequences. Number one, it made me a very strong sleight of hand artist where playing cards were concerned. But two, it also made me a weaker performer because I let the magic muscle atrophy. And that would be fine if it was something that I had meant to do, if it was on purpose, but it wasn't. I just sort of walked backwards into being a sleight of hand artist and losing the ability to perform as a magician. And I found that out very clearly when I went to go do the things that I was doing on Instagram in the real world, and they didn't have nearly the same hit. Because on Instagram, I could take all the credit in the world for the sleight of hand that I had worked so hard to achieve. But in the real world, when you go to do magic, sleight of hand is the last thing that you want to take credit for. When I was young, I grew up in the house of Darwin Ortiz, and there's a very short and clear definition for what magic is, right? Magic is only magic if it's impossible. There you go. There's your short definition. Magic is impossible. Meaning that for any given effect that a spectator might witness, whatever cause is floating around out there, it must exist outside the realm of the possible, of reality. Then and only then is what they've witnessed magic. You see, the tricky thing about sleight of hand is that it is intoxicating if you ever get to take credit for it. Because as a magician, whenever you use it, you constantly have to hide that part of yourself, all of the hard work that you put into that side of things, because you never want it to be the easy explanation for all of the crazy cool shit that is happening to your audience. All of the love and fear and surprise and numinous awe that they are experiencing, you do not want to be explained away because you are good with your hands. But if you ever make the decision to take sleight of hand and turn it into a performance art unto itself, you finally get to take credit for all of the hard work that you've put into this very, very difficult part of your craft. You remove those constraints, but you also do something very important. You take the impossible and you move it down to the very human level of exceedingly difficult. And speaking from experience, impressive though it may be, sleight of hand on its own has very little capability to move people emotionally. And now you're starting to see why this definition of magic that I was holding on to, magic as impossibility, haunted my ass for so many years, because I found out that sleight of hand is a very difficult road to get to impossibility. You can still do it, but the only way that it gets you there is if it flies under the radar, if you do not take credit for it, either explicitly in its execution or implicitly in its consequence. Because the second that you do, you give your audience an out. You give them an explanation, a potential cause for everything cool that just happened, and you are no longer a wizard. And again, none of this would be an issue if it was on purpose, right? If at 7 years old, I had looked at my entire family and said, later in life, I would like to be a playing card sleight of hand artist. I could look at myself now and go, boom, I made it. But I didn't. I told everyone I wanted superpowers, and I chose magic because it was the closest I was going to get to that. So when I found out in my mid-30s that I had turned into a sleight of hand artist and I sort of sucked as a magician, the 7-year-old version of me in the back of my brain went, dude, we were supposed to be wizards. And that was what I had unwittingly given up by the road I had chosen. The ability to move people emotionally, to make them feel awe or joy or fear because they think physics is breaking in front of their eyes. And I wanted it back. So I reached out to every friend that I had made on Instagram. All of the street cred that I had gained from being a sleight of hand artist, I use now to try to return to being the magician that I loved being. And one of the people who helped me find my way home was Perseus. Perseus is a number of things, right? He's a performer, a creator, an author, the founder of a magic company, Orion Magic Productions. But if you've never spoken with him or seen him in action, what you may not realize is that Perseus's entire magic philosophy centers around the idea that your audience should have an experience that they give a damn about long after you've stepped out of the picture. And that's true of everything he's created, everything he's backed, all the products he carries, but it's also one of the philosophies that kind of helped me find my way home. So, to talk about that and so many other things, I figured I would just introduce you to him directly. So without any further ado, allow me to introduce Perseus Arkomanis. Perseus, hey buddy.
Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing very well. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so I wanted to get you on here mostly because I want to talk about a few things that you've done. And first and foremost, I wanted to talk about your particular style of magic, the style that you've been exploring now for several years, and talk about how it is that you got into that. So let's begin there. You have a style of magic that we can safely call symbolistic, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Can you tell me where that came from? Why it is that you use that description in particular?
It comes from an art movement from the 1800s, I think, from France. It's a movement through painting and literature. Damn it! But basically, it is my interpretation of viewing magic as arts. So if I view it like this, there should be a movement behind it, right? So I would call myself a romantic or a symbolist.
Okay.
Because I use magic as a metaphor or as a symbolism to express various themes and thoughts I have for life.
Which for you comes first? The idea, the form, the metaphor, the story and the scripting, or the magical effect? Like, do you find magical effects that you enjoy performing and then try to build on top of them to make them more meaningful? Or do you start with something that you really care about and then try to find the effects that best express it?
I honestly would say both.
Okay.
Because, to me, the ideal is to start with a theme. Have a theme, know what you want to talk about, or think about what you're going to talk about, and then start designing over it. But a lot of the times someone shows you, or you buy a beautiful routine, and you go like, oh, I love that sequence and all that. Okay, what can I use it for? What can I talk about it with that? So you can do both, basically. But in order to do the first part first, if you want to start with a metaphor, I'd say the first thing you need to figure out is go even more back and find out what you care about and what do you want to talk about, which is not something that magicians do a lot of times. I think you need to begin working first who you are as a performer. How do you want to be perceived? Because if you are, for instance, a more humor-based performer, obviously your themes should be more funny or more, or maybe not. Maybe you can talk about serious stuff through humor. I don't know. The thing is, but you should know who you are and how exactly you want to be perceived, and then build that character, and then move to, okay, what I want to talk about as a human being, as an artist, and build those up.
Since we're on this subject, we're talking about some pretty big things. First, this, figure out who you are, then figure out what you want to say, and then go into how and when and why you want to say it. Where should someone start? I mean, outside of the existential question of who are you, if you had to give someone just at least a foothold on where to begin, where would that be?
I'd say first and foremost, ask why about everything. That will give you so many answers, and it will force you to find out answers. So let's take out the ambitious card routine, right? So you have your ambitious card routine. There are 3 phases or 4 or whatever. You put it that way. You put it in. You pass. You put it in. You double undercut. You do whatever. Go back. Okay, they select the card. Why? Let's start with that. What does that card symbolize? It's going to come to the top. All right, let's look at what subjects I want to talk about. What things in life come to the top, come to the surface, are top priority. And you start writing a list of stuff that you care about. And, and then move on from that. When you find the thing, you go like, all right, so if it's this, the card symbolizes this, why should they put it in it? I think I should put it in because I'm talking about how it gets lost. So it's there, whatever, so they don't lose it unless it's part of the theme. If it's something that you sometimes lose yourself, it makes sense for them to put it back. So you ask the whys all the time throughout the process and build the routine around it. Now, to begin with, I would say, look outside of magic. Look for things that you care about. Have other hobbies. Look in arts. Look in pop culture. Look at stuff that you care about. And people a lot of the time can be like, I don't like art. I don't like this. I like mundane things. If you like them enough, if you like them enough and you truly care about them, you can totally talk about them. If you've been honest with yourself, I really want to talk about this. I want to take the feedback of the audience. I want to have a dialogue around this subject, which I care about, and I want to illustrate it with magic. They can see it in your eyes. They can sense it, and they get engaged with it as well. They invest emotionally.
Well, okay, so this brings up something that skirts along a subject I also want to talk with you about, which is the idea of doing this to the outside world, like even at like a professional level, right? Because you've made this leap, right? You've gone from amateur to professional, and you were able to maintain your style. If I'm being perfectly transparent, I wasn't, right? When I first made that leap into doing it professionally, I just kind of did whatever it was that would get me paid, right? It was a very low bar that I set for myself. And I remember I burned out very quickly because it's not a fun way to have to do magic, right? Yeah. So how is it that you were able to maintain both sides of this, right? Maintain the meaningful part of your magic while also doing this professionally? Because some people just show up and they just want to see a happy-go-lucky trick and then get back to their food or something like that. How is it that you were able to maintain this style and get people invested, even if you didn't have a huge performing area, even if they weren't coming specifically to see you?
To me, I viewed it like a musician would, right? You go to Bon Jovi concert, right? If Bon Jovi gigs at Texas, that doesn't mean he's gonna all of the musicians just pull up the banjos and start playing, whatever Texas is known for. They're gonna play their set. This is them. This is their music that you came. And my pieces of magic is my tracks, my track list. So I made them care, because a lot of the times, I have gone to tables where you got a couple of younger people that go, oh, the magician's here now. Let's see who, how we're gonna catch him and stuff. And you go like, no, that's not what I'm here for. And they go like, what do you mean? Like, and then throw out a theme, like, have you heard of so and so? And go like, yeah. Well, so interesting enough, blah, and you go to your script and you just shift the perspective, because I believe the performer should always have the power, should always have the control of the performance. If you give away the control to your audience, you don't know where they're going to go with this. So it's better to bring them in your world than you adapting, because even if it's it's a let's just say crappy gig, that doesn't mean people don't like something meaningful in their lives. Even people that have just are there to eat or whatever, and you tackle them with something profound or something emotionally charged, it's really hard to say no to that.
That's fair.
Because even though they don't expect, even though they have that any kind of stereotype about magic in their minds, we shouldn't play with that stereotype. That stereotype is something that we did to magic. Yes, we magicians are at fault, but we shouldn't continue it. I mean, the fact that the ABSC spectator is expecting to see some trickster making his wife disappear or whatever, we don't have to play along with that. You can just cut it that there. Nope, I'm not here with a smile, with politeness. No, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about something. Like, talk about what? Talk about this. Like, what? What do you mean? And then go into your thing, because people don't like to be fooled. This is a big myth in magic. No, people like to be fooled. No one likes to be fooled. People feel stupid when they get fooled. People love for you to make them think, love to feel stuff, love to have beautiful experiences. So, I think we should better choose to do that to them than just fool them. The fooling part is the given. We should start with that. That is magic, all right? I'm going to do something and you have no clue how it's done. This is the base. What do you add to that? All right, that's the bare minimum. Obviously, it should be fooling, it should be amazing. What else do you have? So if we stay there, then you're doing the bare minimum in my book. I mean, but if you add to that, all right, I fooled you, but we also talked about this. We also tackled about this. I made you feel this, and it becomes an experience more than a puzzle.
Okay, so if we had two takeaways, one, it should seem that the magician should always be setting the tone of what the performance will be, as opposed to strictly meeting the expectations of the audience at any given time. But then also, what is it that you personally could add to make it more of an experience than just a trick, than just a piece of fooling performance?
Puzzle, yeah.
Yeah, puzzle, yeah, rather than an actual experience. Adding emotion. This is something that you and I have discussed in the past.
Yeah.
Getting people emotionally invested, because I've seen the pictures of people getting tattoos of your props after giving them a performance. That's a pretty big thing for someone. I think we might safely call that a level of commitment that I have yet to achieve for anyone outside of myself, but
yeah.
What is it that you're doing that is able to elicit emotion? Would you say it's predominantly the words, the metaphors? What is it that's causing people to have an emotional reaction to your performances?
It's honest. They can feel that. They can feel that when I'm doing, for instance, a piece around relationships, right? I care about relationships. I want to talk about their relationships. A lot of times, you go to a table, you can see the two people standing like this. Then they had a fight or something happened. I want them to unlock them. I want to bring them back together. Because I want to hear their story. How long have you guys been together? When I ask it, it's not just misdirection to call the cars I need to call. I genuinely care. How long have you guys been together? I mean, they spend time to get out, to go have a nice dinner together. Maybe, they didn't work out quite well. Something went sideways, but okay, I'm here. Let's fix it. I mean, and a lot of times you do. A lot of times you fix it. And a lot of times by the end of it, you see them holding hands. They kiss each other. And you're in the background like, I made this. Good.
I made the world a better place.
Yeah. And to me, that is a really nice tick, in the list. If in the end of the routine, someone tells me, how do you do that? I know I failed. I know something didn't click, something didn't connect. Because when you do it well, and I promise you, to whomever wants to try to add symbolism, to add a metaphor to their magic, to express themselves through magic, I promise you, if you do it well, they don't care. They do not care. How do you do it? They absorb and cherish the experience. They thank you for it. And that's it. Most of the times you won't be having the David Blaine reactions. You won't be having people screaming around. You'll be having people crying, people holding their hearts and their breaths, jaws dropping, people hugging each other. That's the reactions I go for. It's that tattoo thing is my best argument. It's whenever I talk with scripting, that's my argument. You can do that to people with scripting, with metaphors, with investing, and have them invest emotionally.
I know you and I have spoken about it. And as far as references that people could start with, because this isn't the type of thing that you could just get a download and you're basically done. Where is it that people specifically could reference material that they could study to get better at this particular aspect? Let's just call it scripting. Let's say if they were starting with scripting, because metaphor and symbolistic styles are, that's pretty high level philosophy and theory, but scripting is actually very practical. It's a very, very practical thing that you could start with. What are some references that you could recommend?
I mean, I would totally recommend Pete McCabe's collection of scripting magic, although his approach is more of a theatrical, because I think he also was a screenwriter for theater at some point. It's more of that approach. I would shamelessly plug my own book, Mosaic.
That's right.
Because
I'll do it shamelessly all day. I love your book. It was great.
I wrote it for that reason. I wrote it to have people embrace magic, embrace scripting and symbolistic magic more. And I'm actually writing the sequel to it because, people read it and it was like, it's 20% theory and 80% tricks. Now I'm doing the opposite. People going like, we need more in-depth information. So I'm writing the second one, which is going to be 80% theory, 20% tricks.
Very good. Perseus, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
And there you go. That's Perseus. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, as with every other major interview I've gotten to do, there is a much longer version, and I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check that out. Also, if you want to check out Perseus's work, as well as all of the products that he carries through his magic company, I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys soon.